call our meeting to order.
Sorry. Still loading.
Okay.
Normally Zach does all this.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do Zach and Mary's all today, so I'm
Cool.
working double.
Just let me know.
Okay, it should be on now. We're live.
Okay, welcome everybody to our Waynesboro Advocacy Committee meeting and Happy New Year. I'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. For those that are online, we have several of us in the room here. I think we have a quorum. So we'll go ahead and move to our first order of business, which is to approve our November meeting minutes. Anybody have any corrections to the minutes? I'll move it. Hearing none and moved by Greg here, we'll go ahead and approve the minutes. Need a second. Okay. We have a second. Mark is seconding online, or Faye.
I'll second.
Either one.
Read them, so
Yeah,
I'm
well,
hesitant to second.
honestly, I think Robert's Rules of Order doesn't require that unless there are corrections to the minutes. So I could go ahead and move it as approved as chair. And I'll go ahead and move us to our first really significant item of business, which is discussion of the status of detailed design. We're going to be moving to talking about the governor's budget and looking ahead to the General Assembly and so forth. But let's go ahead and start with our background on the detailed design. And Joe,
Yeah,
this.
yeah, I'll start. Jonathan may jump in. Mary's-All, if you have details as well. All right, so we have one more content coordination call with Riggs Ward, and that is upcoming here next week. My mind has been a little out of it. I do not even remember what the topic was. Do any of you remember?
It was about the other spaces in the museum, like the children's area
That's
and
right.
education classrooms.
Yeah, we're going to fill in some of the holes in terms of our kind of preliminary look at what the interior looks like. So these have been good meetings just to kind of get the palette started. So I think that's going pretty well. I am behind on this. I'm supposed to call together a fish working group kind of thing. So we're going to be doing that by Zoom here in the relatively near future. So that's just to basically hammer home the idea that fish and aquatic resources is going to be a pretty important focal area of the exhibits. And we have a lot of expertise that we can draw on for that. So that will be upcoming. And the last thing I'll point out, and again, Jonathan jumped in with some of the details, but we ended up going through another value engineering meeting with Glave Homes because the numbers just weren't adding up, you know. So DEB gave us an $18.6 million building budget that does not include desks, it does not include exhibits, it does not include cabinets, it doesn't include solar panels, it's just the building, right? So we have this $18.6 million. And we kind of had to pull some teeth, but I think we managed to do it. We got Glave Homes to change some of the materials, you know, from some of the more expensive things to more reasonable materials. So I think that was successful. We got pretty close to the 18.6, and before the holidays, we were able to submit it to DEB. So we just need a checkbox from DEB that we got it to their goal. At that point, for Part B budget, our understanding is that's when the state will come back and then backfill our detailed design budget, which of course we received $750,000 out of $1.14 million. So that's where we stand with that. Jonathan, is there anything else you want to fill in?
No, it's just part of the process. They give you that schematic cost review, which we also have 18.6 for the building. I think the total on the schematic cost review is 33 million all in kind of budget. So then they take it and you have to do your own V work. So you're looking at landscaping and exactly what you're talking about earlier. Just all the frills kind of go away. So things get shortened.
Yeah,
Heights of fences.
and they're doing things like replacing some of the stainless steel, or not some, but replacing the stainless steel panels with aluminum, things like that. So, yeah. So, I mean, I'm happy because what we have now is, you know, a functional building that falls within what DEP tells us we're supposed to spend.
And then when you were involved in those discussions, I know we had a chat about it. And one of the things that I want us to continue to think about is where we're cutting back on things, where we have the opportunity to maybe set aside that part of the project and find a private donor or foundation or somebody, a naming opportunity. So if somebody wants to come back and, you know, fund the solar panels or the green roof or the things, maybe we have to, some of the landscaping out front, some of those things on the side, outside of the state budget, we have a set design and an amount for those
Yeah, glad
add-ons.
yeah, I seem really open to keeping those placeholders in there for us. It's already been, you know, the design work's kind of already been done at a very high level. So
Right.
they're willing to keep those around. But, you know, when we send them to the state, it'll go out for sure.
But there are going to be other things, like for instance, because our building has to be the equivalent of LEED silver, there are going to be things that the state will require us later on to put back in that will be funded through the capital construction pool. So this 18.6 again is the start. This is your shell building essentially. So your doors, your windows, your fire protection, things along those lines, right? It remains to be seen what we're going to be able to afford in terms of whether it's solar, green roof, certain amenities and so forth. You know? So right now we're just talking about the outside shell, so to speak.
Any questions for Joe or Jonathan about the detailed design?
I just wrote something in the chat, but didn't send it. I'll just go ahead and ask. Has there been any further discussion of working with the Monacan Nation on content and representation of the Native American information for the design?
There's been, since our last WC meeting, there's been no meetings or anything regarding exhibits yet. So we don't have anything new on that. Certainly it's something that, you know, we're open to, Dr. Bassett's open to, and whatnot. So we know you're of course going to be an asset for that. So yeah.
So after this next meeting, which is next week on Wednesday, what will be the schedule moving forward from there?
Well, that's going to depend upon when we get our funds, because then we're going to transfer over from schematic design to preliminaries. And then at that point, it's just a whole nother process that they have a schedule for.
And that would be a time when the Monacan Nation could become involved.
Absolutely.
And we could involve the community more broadly rather than these focus groups and maybe something more extensive.
Yes. And as their focus groups are, we haven't been billed for that service yet. So
Right.
the Riggs Board is doing that out of just trying to keep the project on track and be ready for when we do move in that preliminary stage. Right. So it'll be more formal, certainly more formal coming up.
Yeah, just so everyone's clear what Jonathan's saying, Glave Homes is kind of, I mean, they're essentially voluntarily doing these content coordination calls just for momentum's sake, you know, because they knew it was going to be some time before we would move to preliminaries.
And so foreshadowing our next topic, what is it we should be asking for in this upcoming General Assembly in order to release these funds that have been held back from the...
I don't know that it's in the elected officials' hands.
Okay.
I really don't. I don't think they're going to know what we're talking about.
Okay.
And so forth. It's already in black and white legislation that we have. They've done their part. They voted that 1.14 million, and it's now the people who kind of hold purse strings, you know. So
DEV.
it's DEV and DPV working together.
Right, it's that six pack that we talk about.
Yeah.
You know, the six appointed, the two public people, and then three, you know, it's a whole group of folks that get appointed to do that. And that's who kind of decides where the money goes.
Right.
So, and then the governor, of course, has his say, which is, you know, we're gonna fix the buildings we have.
So would it even be helpful to ask our legislators to request a status on that from DPV or DEV, or is that just kind of?
From the legislators, I think they have access, so the Senate and House Finance Committee both have access to the same systems that DPV has access to. So DEV, they're all playing in that same pool.
So as soon as it's up for DPV or DEV, it's going to be available for legislators to look at.
Correct. Okay. And I think specifically those in the finance sector. The rest is, you have to get permission to get on there.
I think what we can do is just, write a collegial letter from the Board of Trustees to our the person who oversees our budget analyst at Department of Planning and Budget, and then to the fellow we've been interacting with through Department of Engineering and Building. And just be like, hey, thank you for all your support. We're looking forward to the next spot. Here's a reminder of where we sit. Please let us know if we can help in any way. And we can draft that and send it off. We just want to get that check mark from the about moving to preliminaries. Now that we've got the value engineering people. Well, we think we hit their mark.
Right.
So, yeah.
It does sound like more of a staff function.
Staff to staff. Yes. And we have to remember too, I mean, what I also just want to make sure we avoid, I don't want to get unaggressive where we need to be aggressive, but what we don't want to do is do anything that might put pressure on those staffers from the outside. Hey, what's going on? Right? Because those people handle our annual budget too. I mean, our day-to-day operations, so.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking the
Yeah.
question. We don't want to apply pressure where it's actually gonna have a negative effect.
I don't think it's pressure because we found evidence that this has happened to several other agencies.
Oh, yeah, so we're in the same boat with a lot of folks right now. So they're getting enough pressure.
Yeah.
From,
Is this something new and different in terms of process? I mean, is this the way it always goes?
I
with
wish I
capital
had.
projects? I mean,
the only thing I think we have for reference is the building we're in now. And I think that took what, 10 years?
Yeah, Ryan, you're the only one, I think. Yeah, you're the only one that was around during the building of our Martinsville facility. So, we're of course referring to the idea that we got 1.14 million for detailed design. We received 750 to date, and we're waiting on, the rest of this money to come through. Is there anything comparable that you can remember putting on the spot from 15 years ago? That reminds you of the process that the museum went through back then. Remembering that, we all remember that you were pushing brooms and scrubbing toilets back then.
Oh yeah, the good old days. But now I'm pretty sure the capital funding was approved I know the capital funding was approved in 2001, 2002. We broke ground in late 2004. But I'm not sure how long it took to get the capital funding actually, approved. So from the time it was approved, yeah, it was about 4 years total from the time it was approved to when construction was really hitting.
And I don't think we need to use that as a yardstick to say that just because that happened then, this will happen now, right? But I just, while it seems superficially like it should be a very smooth process, a signature on the line, legislation, suddenly a bank account is flush, right? Clearly, it's not the case.
yeah, I'm just wondering about the piece of the not paying out the full amount. That's my question. Is that a common occurrence?
How was it so delicately put by Mr. Gray?
Maybe I shouldn't be asking.
Is
this
the
question.
way the political machine works, and they seem to they are managing cash flow.
Okay.
So,
All right.
when we spoke with them last, I tried to come at it from a different direction. I said, Mike, can you give me an example of another state agency who has gone through this so that I might interact with their financial people to see if they've already got a roadmap on it? He said, no, don't do that. So he said, this is what's supposed to happen. He walked through a very logical progression of steps, right? Which we kind of already knew. And he walked through, and then he finished with, that's the way it's supposed to work. Throw in the politics, right? And that's where he used that delicate phrase of people
Cash flow.
managing cash flow. So it means the money's not there.
Okay.
Where it comes from, I don't know.
That's a major question.
And
We're not the only ones in that boat.
Well,
as you're
I know.
Yeah, I could guess,
But
right.
still,
one that it's not going to be appropriate for staff to go digging.
right.
I really don't think.
And I probably shouldn't have asked the question. Just curious.
Well, we have a journalist on CCR. No, and again, I don't think there's anything nefarious, and I don't think there's anything wrong, and I don't think there's anything, it's not punishment or anything.
Yeah.
Or, I think it is how the process works, and everyone's doing the best they can with the cards they're
I
dealt.
find it interesting, given that we have surplus last year that got
And,
divvied up among taxpayers.
yeah, and monies were spent, you know, on various
I don't know, I
priorities.
just found that all very curious.
Mhm.
That's it. Yeah.
All right, if there are no further questions, let's talk about responding to the governor's budget. If you haven't already, are not already aware of it, we did receive funding for operations in the biennium budget proposed by Governor Youngkin on December 20th. We did receive a note in that budget as well for capital reserve to be spent renovating the trailer, which we inherited. We did not appear in the capital outlay budget. And so we don't have construction money currently in the proposed budget for biennium. So, Joe, do you want to give us any more background on that, or?
So I had a discussion with Greg last week, so Greg, can I pass the ball over to you?
So yeah, I didn't want to write it. City is writing an email to Senator Head and Delegate Campbell, asking them to consider writing a budget amendment. So I wrote that this morning and it's sitting ready for me to send. His name pops up out of this meeting, I can add to it. So that will go out today. Asking them to write a budget amendment to include it in. To reach out to you two for specifics.
All right, if you need any stats or anything like that, we did send both of them 2 weeks ago. I can't remember, but like summaries of various statistics that could help them with language. But we're happy to either answer questions for them or for your email. That's good.
And then I do say that construction costs have doubled since we started this process a decade ago, which is at least double, right? More than that.
Yeah. I think the entire ask was 19 million.
Yeah.
Now, 33 million is what they're supposedly saying we have to work with.
So what about sooner than that?
And we don't have any further information from the folks that we met with, let's say, when we were back there in October, was it? And we met with some staffers, and we don't have anything from them about why the governor didn't include us in the capital outlay or.
I've never gotten that level of attention following the budget. But I mean, you know, again, just to remind everyone, the governor's position back in September was clear that he wanted the state to focus on culling buildings and cohabitating agencies where possible and so forth. And he, of course, sees buildings as an immediate liability. You pay to build them, but then you pay to run them. And these are a lot of agencies that don't make money to cover those costs. So that's his thinking. So we're kind of caught up in that, despite that we're a different animal altogether. But that said, it wasn't as though another agency was spared, if that's the right word, you know. So Gunston Hall, Frontier Culture, for instance, State Police, can't remember who else, anyone who doesn't have money coming from the outside, say from an endowment, they did not see movement in terms of capital construction funds. So we're not a unique case study.
So I've got a question on process.
Yes, Len.
So when we met with Steve Landis, one of the recommendations he made was to attend the public hearings for the Senate Appropriations and the Senate Budget Committee and House Appropriations Committee. He also, though, suggested that we contact as many of the staff members of those two committees as possible to, you know, make our case. Do we have on that as a plan to, or have we contacted any of those members?
We have not contacted them yet, Len. Just so everyone knows, the city, of course, had contracted with McGuire Woods over the past 6 months and so forth. That contract is expired. And one of the services, of course, is that flow of communication is facilitated by that relationship. So a new contract has been requested.
Okay. So what if we don't get that new contract, or do we You
Then
know,
we
is
gotta
there,
do it ourselves, but I'd much rather have the help. You know, I don't know who these people are.
yeah, I agree, but
So when we can do some digging and try to find them, but this is of course what they're built for.
And they haven't really been identified yet either.
No,
Right, because and that's one of the things that I shared with the entire group through Mary Zell is the kind of lay of the land. For this General Assembly, there are an awful lot of new faces, not just
yeah,
our representatives, but obviously their staff, so we don't know who some of these people are.
yeah,
So that's
But
part of the challenge.
yeah.
for us.
He suggested not only contacting those committee members, but also staffers. The staff, you know, permanent staff members.
Yes,
but these committees, not all the committees have been filled or any of them.
yeah, I just was this morning on the Senate Finance Committee and it still has Hager listed. So clearly that's not been updated.
And this was a surprise. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
And it said the new senators don't take.
Yeah, so,
Exactly how it's worded. New senators aren't senators until the second Wednesday of January.
Yes,
So that's not even until next week.
right.
Oh, damn. That's
And
but this,
I noticed that almost none of them, I haven't found one yet, have submitted anything in terms of amendments to the budget. I looked online searching by member, you can go to Chris Head and you can see whether he's introduced anything, there's nothing.
I guess he can if he's not a senator. I forgot all about
He's not a senator.
So-
yeah.
Right.
So we really
So-
can't.
And, but even
So-
Runyon, who is
so-
currently a delegate, you know, he hasn't submitted anything, and maybe they're just waiting for after the new year or whatever,
What's the deadline for amendments?
January 12th,
Oh,
so they have 10 days.
So is that how it works, that hopefully Senator Hanger and Senator Head are working together?
We don't know, we don't know.
All right.
But getting at Len's question, if you wanna, participate in the public hearings for the finance and appropriations committees, you have an opportunity to do that. But you have to register today, and those finance, and appropriations committee public hearings are happening tomorrow, starting at 10 o'clock and running until 4 o'clock. Register today before 4 o'clock. You can do that on the LIS. So if you just do LIS Virginia, you can find the committees, and there will be a link there to sign yourself up. And there are 4 regional hearings, one of which is Western Region, which I'll be participating in. And you have 3 minutes to say your piece. And this will be everything from A to Z. So this is not just going to be about our project. It's going to be, you know, they're going to be hearing from all quarters of the Commonwealth. So if you want to do that, and I encourage you to do that, register yourself, and it's by order of registration. So, and yeah, Len, I think Landis's guidance is good. Once we know who those people are on those committees, then we need to reach out to their staffers. And,
Yeah.
and we need to do that within 10 days and probably sooner, because
but aren't there some government paid employees that are permanent, you know, administrative staffers for these 2 committees?
Yes.
I mean, are those people, I know in the past we've met with those types of folks. I'm wondering if that's not what he's suggesting, not just the legislative staffers, but the actual permanent, because they're the ones that control agendas and stuff like that, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I don't know the answer.
Potentially, they're not gonna be, though, I would say if we bring an amendment, we would bring an amendment to them. And then they would try to fit it in to work. I think it goes from, you know, the staff get direction from the legislature, then the staff take that and run with it. So I think bring in the amendment to the legislature, then they go to the staff. But I communicate with those, every year during the budget session, so.
So what we'll do, we are of course still waiting on it. As of 10 minutes before this meeting, I hadn't gotten a contract yet. But we'll continue to push to get that help. And then at the same time too, we'll see what kind of contact information we can dig up to send the project description to, as well as the specific request. So, and then, if it goes to the wrong person, it goes to the wrong person, no harm, no foul. Because we can follow up and make sure that, we get information out to the proper people.
I do know that all the current employee staff members have seen the project. Because part of the request is, I send presentations to them. So they know it's, they know it's there.
Two of them were in the governor's opinion that we had.
Yeah.
So I guess the city is committed to renewing the contract with McGuire Woods.
Well, frankly said, since the foundation's paying for it, I think the city's very willing, but we need to see what they're going to, what they're gonna charge. We, of course, got the friends and family rate for the last 6 months because it was fairly minimal, right? This will be much more intensive, and we need to see what the costs are gonna be.
Okay.
I mean, we're
Carol,
not.
Sorry.
you're waiting to hear from them.
I was just going to say that I've been using the Virginia Legislative Information System for years, following the General Assembly, largely for historic preservation, but other issues as well. And I've never seen a year where there have been so few bills filed previous to the session beginning. If you look under subjects, if you do a review under subjects, it's remarkable to me that most of the subjects have absolutely no bills filed yet. And I have wondered whether or not, Tom, looking at your PowerPoint, is this a reflection of all the change and people just trying to understand who their allies are before they start to make these, they're always looking for ways to get multiple sponsors for the bills. And it really feels like this year is different. And I'm wondering if I want to put this in the right way, but it just feels like in the next few weeks, we're going to see an explosion like we've never seen before in terms of legislation. And so it's going to be really important to keep our eye on this and to make sure that we're following this on a daily basis. And in some instances, maybe even an hourly basis while they're entering bills. But like I said, I've never seen the legislative information system so underpopulated at this point in time.
I wonder if that could work to our advantage, because if you remember back in 18, 17, I don't remember, but we have to admit, there was the strategic move to put our pre-planning into the budget while there was a major discussion, Medicare, being engaged in, and it just kind of slid through. I hate to be that way, but if there is an explosion of bills, and ours is relatively small, right? Do you remember the number, Jonathan? Even though the state wasn't putting hard dollars down on these construction projects, wasn't it something like still an approval of 400 and some million?
400 million.
$400 million in construction bills. So our, request for, 30 or whatever the final number will end up being, is,
Isn't a budget amendment different than a bill? Because
yeah.
And is it possible that there's just a backlog at the staff level? Because in my conversations with legislators, they had a pre-file. It's so many, and the pre-file was over like a long time ago. And then they still had half a dozen. The person I was talking to still had a half a dozen. There's a limit, and the limit is much smaller than the 4,000 bills or whatever that was last year. So I got the impression from them that everyone had done all the pre-filing, and then they always had a few left to go before some deadline, which is like now. I mean, it's before session starts.
The pre-filing.
Yeah.
Well, and I know in conversations with Senator Hanger in particular, he was saying, well, if it doesn't show up in the governor's budget, I'm going to put the amendment in, even though he won't be there, after whatever the second Wednesday in January, he can still put in. He can put in an amendment.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
There always has to be a senator because there's a
Right,
chain of command,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You can't not have a senator. So,
Right.
yeah, so he's technically still a senator Hanger.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that he would be in communication with Senator Head or whatever and say, passing the buck to you, passing the baton to you. Baton, let's not say buck.
Slightly
How do we actually know that they actually submit that though? He's got to submit it between the 10th and the 12th, right? So
You
is
can
his
search-
office going to tell us?
You can search on LIS. It'll show
Right,
you.
but as an organization, wouldn't a member of his staff, Senator Head staff, contact us and say that amendment has been submitted?
I would hope so, but if they're submitting 4,000 amendments, they probably don't have the time to reach out to everybody that's affected by those amendments. But I don't know. I think the best thing to do is for us to, like Carol said, really check that almost hourly and see when it shows, if it shows, and when it does, identify, that there's a patron on both sides, because that has to happen. And then once that happens, then we start to advocate among the broader assembly and maybe the people in the finance committee and so forth, to move it forward.
Because we need an amendment to go to start.
Yeah, we need a chief patron.
Yes.
On each side. And that's what the city's asking for, as I understand it from Greg, as soon as we leave this meeting.
I think Carol's point, there is a learning curve. I think there's so many new members, so much turnover that they just don't know who they're going to figure out who's going to be on the other side of the bill.
Right, and I did share with so I participate in the Virginia Conservation Network, which is a great organization, and because I'm affiliated with Travel Unlimited, I go to their General Assembly preview every year, and they always do a nice job at kind of laying out what they expect to see happen, what kinds of bills, the conservation community might want to get behind. And I really like this presentation, which I shared with everybody, that kind of gave an overview of what we can expect. And like we've already said a couple of times, we've got a lot of new faces. And of course, we have Democratic control of both houses, and we have a Republican governor. So that'll be kind of interesting too. We have, and I'm just reading off some of the slides here, we have a lot of diversity in the assembly. We have a lot of first-year people, so our goal is to really educate them about the current project. And then there are some leaders identified already that we want to know about. So, who the speaker is, who the minority leader is. The minority leader is actually Todd Gilbert, who's not far from here in Shenandoah County, on the House side. And on the House side as well, the Finance Committee chair is Vivian Watts from Fairfax, but Chris Runyon is sitting on that committee. So we need to make sure, and I've been in touch with him, and I think what I plan to do tomorrow is talk to the House. You have the choice of either going to the House or the Senate. You can't talk to both committees, but I'm going to talk to the House committee because Chris is sitting there. On the Senate side, we have Scott Suravel as a majority leader, and yet the caucus chair on the Republican side is Mark Obenchain, who's also not far away here in Rockingham County. And so we have some leadership there that we maybe can be in touch with all the new faces in the room. People who have, just 1 or 2 terms behind them are now in seniority. So somebody like Chris Runyon now has a lot of seniority compared to people that are just coming in. On the Finance and Appropriations Committee for the Senate, it's chaired by Senator Lucas, and I don't know her, but those are good names to know. And I'm not sure that, as I said, I haven't seen the rest of that committee yet because it seems like it's outdated. It hasn't been updated on LIS yet. So as soon as that happens, then we need to know who those folks are. And there are a couple things I want to mention too, and that is that there are lobby days going on. There are organized lobby days for water, which is January 29th. And for conservation in general, which is January 30th, and I'm going to be down there for those. And I think we have already scheduled a lobby day. Is it February 7th? Did we put that on the calendar?
Second Wednesday.
It's the Wednesday after the WAC meeting. So yes, the 7th.
February 7th.
Unless we decide to change it for whatever reason.
And then, of course, when we get the committee schedules and the subcommittee schedules, we want to know that, and anybody that's willing to go and talk in person to those committees or subcommittees, that would be valuable as well. So that's what I know in terms of a preview. I don't know if anybody has anything else to share about what we can expect.
I don't know what to expect entirely, but in addition to the minutes, which will take a little longer to put together and send out, since this is critical, we'll put together kind of a marching orders document that we'll share tomorrow morning. And everyone can have a chance to look for any holes in it or insert ideas. might be useful. But we'll fill that in, including utilizing Len, our checklist.
Yeah, that's good.
But he's listening to the meetings.
As I was thinking about my remarks that I'll share with the finance committee tomorrow, one thing that I thought might help is, and I've heard you say this in the past, Joe, that when children visit a museum, that there's a connection to their performance in school. And I don't know if you have statistics on that or something like that. That would be really helpful to add, because I think there is an emphasis, what I saw in the budget, on education, and maybe we can make an argument, in addition to economic development, that this project would advance education and in maybe a non-traditional way, or at least a different way than the traditional public schools.
Yeah, we got that from AAM.
Yeah, so if you have stats like that, I could really use that, and I'd pepper that into my comments.
Sure.
I don't know if anything else, I'd open the floor to any suggestions on the kinds of arguments that we think we ought to make in front of the finance committees.
So if I could step in here for a second.
Sure, Len.
So, they've already, the General Assembly's already approved the concept of having a museum project in Waynesboro for all those good reasons. I think the challenge that we have is to move the funding up to this cycle as opposed to some future cycle. So I think really the argument's got to focus on why doing it now and why doing it later would be a bad thing. Now, I don't know what all those, what the specific things are, but the longer it waits, obviously, the more more costly it will be. But I think there's also that discussion about, momentum in the city of Waynesboro and stuff like bringing new businesses in and, lifting our education level up, because our students are falling behind because of COVID, those kinds of things. We got to create a sense of urgency, which is really the issue. It's the urgency question of, why it has to happen now as opposed to in 2 years or 4 years or 6.
That's a good point, Len. In fact, you can also just throw in there the obvious that we're missing students every year. Every year that this project's delayed, there's another graduating class that won't have a chance to, as a student, go to a museum and get those learning benefits.
Yes. It's interesting. I read an article this morning that was written about the retiring CEO of Southern New Hampshire University. As you know, they grew their student base from like 22,000 in 2005 to 246,000. And he was talking about how AI is going to totally transform how we do business on the professional white collar world. And basically what he's saying is it's not going to be about what you know in those professions. It's going to be how you make use of what you know to be productive, basically. And I think that's the argument here about our K through 12 impact with a museum project in Waynesboro, introducing them to STEM futures, is being able to learning how to apply what you know to solutions that will drive, industry down the road. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but I thought that was very interesting, and it's very true in terms of the white collar type jobs as opposed to the, what automation did to the blue collar jobs.
Another line of argument, and maybe this is because I heard Senator Hanger say this, that in the finance committees, when he was participating, they had kind of a tradition of not leaving projects on the shelf.
Yeah.
That once they had kind of entered the process, they were going to follow through. Yeah. And so, like you were saying, because of costs and because of dating the detailed design or, preliminary design work, if we wait 2 years, things change. Let's just move on it now while it's.
Yeah. The urgency of doing it now. And Joe, I think the state's already basically funded, what, $2 million towards this project at this point?
Yeah, we're approaching 2 million.
1.5 to, yep.
1.5 from the state, maybe, another.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think that's an excellent point to make.
So basically,
Heck yeah.
And, I put it off, we're ready to go.
it's time to deliver the baby, basically.
Yes,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's all those arguments are good. Also, can I go back to, you mentioned Senator Hanger, and that he's actually still our senator.
Yes, he is.
Can we go to him directly and just say, can we get this amendment in there? You know, put it in and get ahead, you know, to carry on. Can we do that?
I can certainly call Howell.
I have
Yeah, I
an
don't see
exchange
why
with
we
him
can't.
already.
Yeah.
We think that's the right course. It's not go to.
Well, we need
Chris
to go
Head.
to Head. I
Yeah.
think we need to go to Senator Head, but
Simultaneous.
if he doesn't, because he doesn't take his position until after the
Yeah.
filing deadline, or maybe within a couple days of filing. deadline.
Yeah, so he didn't.
So it's, how
The time.
does he recommend we move forward with it? How does Senator Head recommend we move forward with it? Does he recommend that Hanger, you know, patron the bill to begin with, and then they pass the baton, like I was saying earlier?
Because to me, it sounds like almost an impossible timing issue.
Right.
In terms of the new coming in and the deadline. I mean, it's,
Almost intentionally so.
yeah.
One thing I can do without breaking the rules, I could call both Senator Hanger and Delegate Avoli's offices, undoubtedly leaving a message, maybe talk to the human, I don't know. But I could just tell them, hey, just want to give you the courtesy that, you know, our colleagues are going to be asking Senator Head and Delegate Campbell for these budget adjustments. And if you have any questions, call Greg or something. But no, we can do that. We can do that, you know, because I mean, it was the senator that, you know, volunteered the idea of like, no, I'm putting a budget adjustment in, and I didn't quite understand that, you know, since he was retiring. But if that's the case, then he's still the senator. I mean, yes. I guess he's still having fun. Don't think so. Yeah, maybe later, but yeah. Okay, so yeah, okay.
Mhm.
All right.
So we'll work through that, I guess, and hopefully quickly, because we are on a deadline. And until we get those amendments in, there's really not a whole lot we can do. Once we have a patron on both sides and we have amendments in, then we can do a lot the rest of the month in testifying in front of committees, or, you know, advocating with staffers or whatever. But really, that's the first thing that needs to happen. Anything else?
Yeah, one last question.
Yes,
I
Len.
don't know if we have an answer to this, but do we know where the rough spots are in terms of the budget? In other words, what are we competing with in terms of funding? And I'm going to say the overall capital pool bucket, because our bucket's little, you know, not really that big, although it's 10% of that capital pool budget. But do we know politically, you know, where the push is in terms of, you know, the overall objective from this budgeting cycle? You know, are we facing, you know, Mount Everest, or are we just facing Afton Mountain kind of, you know?
We don't know, I don't think.
No, well, delegate told me, well, so the proposal is to lower the capital income tax and raise the sales tax, so there could be a revenue issue. And then also K-12 salaries, I've heard. Some transportation issues, bridge repair, that kind of stuff.
It's, you know, it concerns me about the fact that the funding issue that we discussed, you know, 30 minutes ago, about the fact that the other chunk of money hasn't come in because of cash flow concerns. You know, as a private industry person, that's like red bells and lights going off in my brain, you know. So, I mean, that could be partly playing into this, right? If there's an issue with sourcing cash today to fund the commitments that have already been made in a period where there was supposedly budget surpluses, you know, that's not going to go away next year just because there's a new General Assembly, right? So, you know, that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. I mean, is the problem so big that you know, we're running up a you know, against a downhill waterfall running upstream kind of thing? I don't know. Not that it really matters. I think we should push hard anyways, and push and push and push, but I don't know, might help with the argument.
Well, I think one thing where we have an advantage is two ways. One, the projects that are approved are all approved from outside funding. I'm talking about construction, right? So those entities weren't really too concerned, if they were gonna get a piece of the pie or not. I'm sure they want it, but at least we don't have to go up against them, and like we said, our project, in my estimation, is a lot stronger than many of the other projects because we're not just justifying it via mission, we're justifying it through economic development as well as education and so forth. So I think we've got a few different areas that work to our benefit for argument. Whereas these other capital projects, they're already pretty well set. I mean, you have a hard time going up against VCU and UVA, right? Because they're going to be heavy hitters and everything like that. They're not really in the discussion,
Yeah. Yeah, okay, well, just.
Sorry, let me just interject because we don't only have a couple minutes before 2 o'clock, and I don't know how many people have to leave the meeting. I know we started a little bit late, but let me just go to open discussion and see if there's anybody that has to leave that wants to bring something up for the attention of the committee at this point. Is there anybody that needs to go?
No, I'm good.
So if you can stay with us for another 15 minutes, I think we can get through the rest of our agenda. Go ahead, Len. You had something else you wanted to add.
No, I was just gonna say, I've got to log off here in about a minute, so.
Oh, okay.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks, Len.
Thanks, Len.
So are we ready to move to the community connections and events part of our agenda? Is there anything else we want to talk about regarding the General Assembly? All right, let's go ahead and hear from Joe about updates on the outreach trailer.
Yeah, I'll come back to that. Let me just say that we have the Wayne Theater Talks continuing here on the 16th. I'll be around for that. Len and I have a Daughters of American Revolution talk on the 14th, and we will be participating in Riverfest, which I guess the official announcement went out recently for that. So that's good. So again, April 27th, which is a Saturday. We'll, of course, this year for the first time be in the mobile outreach trailer. And so we have most of the wrap put on. So if you're coming up Broad Street from the direction of Afton Mountain, you still see some VMFA leftovers, but when the weather gets warmer, the team will come and finish that off. We're still doing some basic maintenance and so forth. The roof was kind of leaky, a little more so than what was let on. So we're fixing that. That's fine. The inside's looking good. So for those of you who saw the inside, it actually came together pretty good considering we only had about 5 weeks to pull it together. We're continuing to make some improvements to the inside. We're going to expand the exhibits for Riverfest and hopefully move the garbage can out of the middle of the floor to catch the rainwater. So I think we will be ready for a crowd of a couple thousand people who can go through. So and then the one thing about the budget you heard about before was that we have maintenance reserve funds from the state to fix the trailer up, which would be separate. It's in addition to the other maintenance reserve costs we got for VMNH in general.
Yeah. So is there discussion about, I think there probably has been, about using the trailer, opening it to the public other than just big events? And,
yes.
And trying to develop some volunteers, docents, whatever you want to call them, to help with that. Because I've already had 3 people ask me about it and are interested in volunteering.
Okay.
So I think there's probably interest.
Well, what I'd like to do then is to connect you and Len and Tom together, and we'll just let everyone kind of help us put together a list of people. We already have a key here at Economic Development as a backup, and then we just need to identify days. I don't want it to be open random days because that's going to not be respectful of people's time. But if we have various, so maybe
Saturday mornings or something like that.
Well, at least farmers market or something.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking. Farmers market
that would be a really good
open.
time to be open.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, I think that would be a great opportunity.
So the answer is yes. We just
Okay.
to kind of put that into the queue for work. Right now, we're so worried about getting that.
And what you should know too is that we have to have power to the trailer.
Okay.
If we want, we can turn the lights on and things like that, just with an extension cord. But if we want to actually have HVAC, then we need a generator on site, and that's something we have to rent because of that.
So I am going to talk. This doesn't help with the HVAC, but First of all, with maintenance reserve, we're pretty confident we can get a generator, right? So it's supposed to come with a generator. The generator that came with that unit was bolted to the truck. So we didn't get it. So we think we can make the argument that we get it. The second thing we'll do, this won't help with HVAC, but will help with the monitor and laptop and lighting and that sort of thing. We'll talk to John Miles, see if he can give us some advice on how to proceed forward with, because it costs $500 a pop to rent the generator plus the cost of transporting it. So instead of consistently investing that money in, what we can put in, at least for where we don't need the HVAC, a solar system to run the trailer, because it's just 4 LED strips and a monitor, so it really isn't that much power. So we think it's going to be an evolving project in terms of what its capabilities and so forth. So yeah, but during a nice spring day or a fall day, it shouldn't be a problem, you know. And as Tom alludes to, you need 2 big ones, 2 long ones, but we can reach the power at the pavilion to turn lights on. So you really do need the lights.
Yeah, big thank you to our budget analyst for getting that language in the budget to allow us to maintenance reserve on it.
Yeah.
It is not actual physical building, which is right. So that is a small victory if we can say that about this budget language.
Yeah.
There's a message from Mark on screen. So,
Yes.
I'll pull it up for everyone to read, but it says we need a local coordinator for the trailer, and Lynn's wife may be that person. That way it's not on staff to run this. Mark, if you want to expand.
No, just that, she spoke to Len and I when we had the dinner up there before the last board meeting, and she sounded really, really excited about being super involved in it. So, I mean, why not take that extra step, even if it's just, well, you do it for the first 6 months, or you do something, something where you can get somebody local. I think it could add a lot of value. I'm sure she'd do it.
Yeah, and you're talking about Len Doran, not Len Poulin, right?
No, I'm talking about Len Poland.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's married.
Yeah,
American.
yeah, because I thought you also had a conversation with Len Doran about it.
So anyway.
Yeah, well, that's good to know.
Thanks, Mark.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care who uses it, first of all, the items that we put up there, we want to take care of for sure. But there's nothing up there that's like a one of a kind over there, So, we're not really too concerned about. We just need someone to conscientiously open it, close it, be an ambassador. So I already put together for Len's consideration a cheat sheet for all the exhibits that are in there now, and we can expand on that when we put a couple more bits in there. So we already have that down. Now it's just a matter of scheduling, whether it's going to be farmer's market. Well, we don't want to do that until the temperature is above freezing, but also cut it when it's going to be quite hot until we get a point where we have permanent power.
And just on the science talk for this month, it's going to be on trout streams and water quality in trout streams. That's a UVA researcher who's coming over. He's done a lot of work on that. Next month, we're having a speaker on stormwater and stormwater management, and in particular about the project right here in town to daylight right both spring. So that'll be part of that one. Those are the next 2 coming up. Cool. Also wanted to mention with regard to Riverfest that the spirit animal for Riverfest this year is the Eastern Screech Owl. And I've already suggested to the museum staff that they have some exhibits having to do with the Eastern Screech Owl. And I thought since we had our exchange by email, there's these activities where children use owl pellets and they get to open up owl pellets. If we had some of that we could do, I think that would be fun.
I'll collect some.
Okay.
Great spot for it.
All right,
I've
great.
already sent
That'd be great.
this year, but they're
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Only 3 owls this year, though.
Still pretty good.
Yeah,
We had one down by us,
do you?
Guilford County,
Great.
and we went looking
Is that
for
a new find? New
Yeah.
observation? That's great.
and well, we went down to go see it, and some photographers went during the day through the field, flushed it,
Flushed them. Yeah.
and we haven't seen them since.
Oh,
I know.
well, speaking of screech owls, do you know John Spar?
Yes.
Dr. John
Yes.
Spar.
With the Augusta Bird Club.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he knows quite a lot about
Okay.
eastern screech owls. He's done a lot of research over in Highland.
Yeah.
And you might want to keep him in mind.
Well, there's a couple of faculty up at JMU who net missed that screech owls during migration
Okay.
up in Shenandoah County.
Oh, really?
Participated with them. So you reminded me of that.
But
as
he's
well.
but just keep them in mind
Yeah.
if you're looking for.
And then of course, there's also the wildlife center. They have lots of
Oh,
experience with
Yes, they do. Sure do.
owls. So it's a good spirit animal for us to engage with.
Mhm.
May I make a statement though about referring to this as a spirit animal? You can imagine what I'm going to say, and that is that the Virginia tribes really do see that as cultural appropriation in a very negative way. And so it would be good to not use that term.
Okay, that's good to know. And that's probably my fault. I don't think that's a term that Riverfest uses. I can't remember what they call it. I think it's just the,
They used to use that term starting when they first started.
yeah, but I looked on their website and they don't use
They
that
don't
term
use it now.
anymore.
Maybe Carol got them straight on that one.
Maybe, yeah.
They just branded as Europe Eastern Screech Owl.
The year of, okay,
Yeah,
so they just said the
the
year of,
street.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Thank you, Carol.
Tom, I have a question.
Yeah.
About, the library, are you gonna continue doing that?
I had that on my list of questions to ask too. I think our experience is that we've had diminishing returns on the number of people who come to our
We
library.
had interesting people, but
Hours.
like last time I did was one.
We have one or
And
two.
she wants to be a volunteer. She's one of
Right.
the people who wants to.
And I think if we get volunteers that are willing to open up the trailer, maybe we
Yeah.
move it to that
I was
because I
gonna
think
say,
that might be
Be a
more
good
engaging.
substitute.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
Better space.
right. I don't know if there's a different time you want to do that. Maybe it's during the farmers market hours,
Yeah.
which are Saturday morning.
Yeah, I think that's a great.
So
idea.
Saturday mornings, maybe we just make that as our,
I think that's a great idea.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and yeah, count me in on
okay.
helping with that.
Okay. And is the, Greg, do you know where the farmers market starts on?
I'm just thinking, I think it's April.
April. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's April.
Okay, so we have some time. That gives us time to make sure the trailer's in good condition as well.
And is security an issue at all? For the trailer? Is it? I mean,
We talked about that a little bit. I guess we aren't too worried about it.
It's
Um,
locked.
Yeah.
The
No more than anything other.
else
yeah.
downtown, yeah.
Yeah, it's now granted, some of the outside hatches are not secured. But you know, at that point, with someone like sticking a quarter in our electronics or something like that, may as well be worried about all kinds of things, you know, so, but the doors to the inside, all three of them are secure.
Mhm.
You know, the only thing that might be less than secure is the umbilical that goes to the generator. We have that stowed underneath in one of the lock boxes there, but the lock is broken.
I was just thinking, you know, if it does have exhibits and. You know,
It's
you said
good
that they're
enough,
not,
yeah.
they're not unique.
No,
terms of-
you know, and we don't want to lose anything that's in there, but there is nothing in there that you're gonna take to a pawn shop.
Right.
And I just wonder if there are any security cameras pointed in that direction, from like the firehouse.
We could put a couple fake ones up next time.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Or one of those signs that says just under surveillance.
Yeah.
They might put some in their driveway.
Put Greg's face on it.
My office.
Keep your binoculars, right?
Neighborhood watch. Yeah.
You have a wolf in there, so.
Dig a moat.
What'd you say?
Dig a moat.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, that was the worst idea yet, Mark. Tim's gonna be really mad.
All right, anything else about community connections or events? Anything for our open discussion? No, doesn't sound like it. Our meeting next month is scheduled for February 6th, which is the day before our scheduled lobby day. And I guess we can hold this one virtually, so if you wanted to already be in Richmond, is that right? Could we hold it?
Yeah, we can hold it virtually. We did talk about staff doing a trip up here, staying overnight and transitioning over to Richmond for the convenience of it rather than stay up in Richmond, which would be more expensive.
Yeah,
So can we get back to you on that?
sure. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Any other business for the good of the order? Hearing none,
None.
adjourn.